just again encourage, make sure that they're prerequisites. Make sure that these things are black and white about being a brother or sister and it really being a sin. When it's clarified, proceed. This is for that, but not until then. Not until then. So that's the prerequisites. Now we come to the actual recipe itself, because this really is and it's hard, but it's a graceful way of dealing with things. Let's walk through the 3 steps of this process here today. Step 1. Go to the person who has sinned against you. You know, so often we think that if somebody's done something wrong to me, then it's their job to come to talk to me. Not according to Jesus. And this is actually quite fascinating to me, because it means 2 things. First of all, it means that when you're offended or you're sinned against, you can't always assume that the other person even really knows that they've done that. Sometimes people don't know. The second thing is it makes sure that when you are hurt, when you are sinned against, that you don't kind of, well, you remember those little bugs when you were a kid, the little roly-poly ones? As soon as you touched them, they would go, it makes sure that we don't develop this in our personalities and in our behavior, that if we are offended or hurt, that the only thing we can do is just kind of hide. This is saying, go deal with it. And this is actually, in some ways, kind of giving you permission. Like, you've been hurt? Okay, let's go deal with it. Let's deal with it. And if anybody has dealt with children who have come into conflict, like you see very quickly why such information is really, really important. Because when children learn at an early age that when they have a problem on the playground, or they have a bully, and there's all kinds of ways to deal with that, right? If there's a bully, you can punch them in the face. You can run away. But like, what's the right way to deal with it? It's to go tell somebody, right? It's to go tell somebody. And here it's saying, go talk to them. Go deal with it. The second aspect of this first stage of dealing with a person who sins against you is this: only talk to them alone. Don't spread it around. Don't gossip about something that happened. Just between you and them. In a church setting, over years of time, there should be lots of conversations that happen that only 2 people and God knows about. Only 2 people and God. And the tone of the conversation when you're speaking to someone, and it's hard when you're hurt, it's the emotions come to the fore, do they not? Look, guys, we're all people. Things are bound to happen. It's hard to deal with things when you're hurt. It's hard to keep walking. It's hard to talk sometimes when you're hurt. You feel like sometimes people feel like they're going to cry, or they're upset, or they're just angry, like they can't talk in a way. But Galatians chapter 6, verse 1, I'll just read it quickly, talks about how we're supposed to approach this, not only in the facts of it, but also the tone of it. It says here, brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, right? Because you got to kind of approach them with that mindset. Okay, they've done this, but you know, if sin is in somebody's life, they're struggling too. Don't forget. If a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. So we don't walk into such conversations with like kind of like the Cain and Abel, like, oh, we already got the hierarchy. You sinned against me, so I'm better than you as I talk to you. No, you come as this, and you say, you did this, hurt me. Can we talk about it? Spirit of gentleness, because you realize you may have done the same sin to somebody else, like yesterday. or maybe the day before, if you're really good. And if we guard these things, if we guard them about our dealings with one another, this becomes more and more effective as a strategy, because most things that happen can really be solved in this first step. This is probably the step where we need to pay attention the most, because it is where I would say 90 to 95% of the work is done. And when you preserve someone else's honor, even as they have hurt you, and this applies again to even like within marriages and relationships in general. If you're concerned about the honor of the individual, even as you deal with them, right? You're not spreading this around. You're just talking to them. Be like, you may not have meant to, or I don't know what happened or why this happened, but this happened. Most of the time, you'll either find out that it's a misunderstanding, or the person will just say, "Man, you know what? You're right. Sorry. Would you forgive me?" Done. That's the goal. That's the goal. If your brother hears you, what does it say? If he hears you, you have gained your brother. Honor needs to be at work in this process. Honor is very, very important. In Psalm 141, verse 5, it says this as far as dealing with conflict and what it looks like when you're dealing with it honestly and maturely. It says this: "Let the righteous strike me, and it shall be a kindness. Let him rebuke me, it shall be as excellent oil. Let my head not refuse it." Now, we all know how hard it is to get to the place where that's a place of maturity I don't think most people get to. And I don't say that as a slight. I'm just saying, like, you have to be really mature. You have to be really, 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 really mature to have that in your mind and to have that in your heart. But we're supposed to. And this is our time to be, like, you can't not become mature and then become mature later. No, you have to start by making the decision. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, right? We read passages like that. He's like, no, you do need to have the mindset of Christ. And we need to have the mindset of Christ in dealing with conflict. And that's the goal. To gain your brother and to respond as maturely as is possible.